Hey, what's up guys? In today's video, I want to share with you my favorite print-on-demand niche, and it is definitely fueled by a personal bias because I'm a huge fan of fantasy football, and this is probably like the second or third year in a row that I'm going to do a video talking about how we can monetize and make money from fantasy football even if we don't know anything about it and don't particularly like to watch football or play fantasy football. This video is going to be all about this niche that really flies under the radar. This is kind of my favorite type of niche because it's not so obvious that everybody jumps in. But if you bring personal knowledge and expertise to it like I do, and even if you don't, honestly, because I'm going to show you how you can still research and find opportunities, but you can definitely make money in this niche. You can make sales. We're going to look at when you can expect peak sales as well, because this is something I always like to do. It's an easy data point to grab. So we'll start there and then we'll pivot into niche research and then we'll pivot into designs. So let's get started. Real quick, guys, check out the links at the top of the description. I've got free resources for you. I've got a free weekly print-on-demand giveaway. 2 winners will be randomly selected and announced on Sunday. I've got an 8-day print-on-demand mini course delivered via email, 1 lesson a day, and a great print-on-demand Facebook group. So I hope you take advantage of those. So the first thing I want to do is go to Google Trends. This is not required. It's just something I prefer to do because I like to have an idea of when I can expect peak sales. I think something that some sellers do is jump into a niche and don't make a sale immediately and then move on to the next thing because they think like, oh, well, I guess, I must have done something wrong or whatever. But, it's best to know when to expect, peak sales. All right. And if possible, you want to be ranked organically on your primary keywords ahead of the peak season. So I'm typing in fantasy football on Google Trends. It is google.com/trends. By default, you get the last 12 months. And from here, we can see in 2021, it was the second week of September that was peak season. And we can even split that out to like the last 5 years and kind of get an idea. So second week of September last year, second week of September in 2020, first week of September and I guess it really probably depends on the kickoff of the NFL season if I had to guess. And that probably just depends. It looks like it's always going to be the second week of September, but it's going to be based on like how the days of the week fall is what it looks like to me. Also, for what it's worth, we notice that this trend is going actually down and to the right in terms of interest. Ideally, we want to see that reversed. We want to see higher highs, kind of like we're looking at a stock chart or something. We want to see higher highs as time progresses forward. So in terms of like niche selection, if you could only choose one and you had to compare fantasy football to something else, like, I don't know, let's just type in something. You can always do a comparison. Pickleball, if we're still sticking to sports, you can see pickleball actually like kind of going up in interest as far as over time in the last 5 years. But when you compare it to fantasy football, obviously the interest in fantasy football is absolutely massive. Also, for what it's worth with regards to fantasy football, you see that interest kind of drops off as the NFL season progresses. So you're going to see most of your sales around kickoff. And this is when it's like, the most exciting. That's what inspired this video. I'm in a group chat with some of my, close buddies. And while I'm in multiple football leagues, fantasy football leagues, we have this one that we started like 4 years ago, I think, where it's like whoever wins the league decides where we go the next year to draft. So we'll be in Denver, not this weekend, but the next weekend. So can't wait to be in Colorado and doing a football draft and just getting the boys together. So in terms of a niche, I'd say this is pretty well validated, even though we didn't really compare it to something like, what's one more we could do just to see? Like Halloween. Obviously, Halloween's going to be huge, but so it dwarfs fantasy football. But if we say like Halloween shirt, get a little bit more specific and say fantasy football shirt, so it filters out costumes, it gets a little bit closer. Okay, you see what I did there? I added the word shirt as a qualifier. And pickleball, of course, now dwarfs them. But if I do pickleball shirt, okay, there we go. Actually, okay, Halloween still crushed it. Anyways, if we're sticking to fantasy football, not every niche needs to be like massive, where it has the potential to make you $1 million in sales. Like fantasy football kind of flies under the radar every year. It's one of those where it's like, if you're paying attention, you probably think of it. Otherwise, you might just let it go right by you. But there are sales to be made in this niche. And I'm already making sales, as I mentioned earlier. So I wanted to let you guys know that, and it's a lot of fun for me just to look through some of these shirts. I'm using Pretty Merch Pro Plus. This is my go-to niche research tool. I love that it's one click away on your Amazon merch dashboard. All right, and it's on sale right now too, by the way. I sent out an email earlier this week, but I'll also drop a link to the sale I forget, what is it, like, I think it was like 50 something % off. So definitely worth considering. I personally have been loving it. So I went ahead and I typed in fantasy football into the search bar. The one thing I think they do best, if I had to pick, outside of the convenience of always being one click away, also the trademark search actually is really useful. But their search function works really well. So type in fantasy football and we can just scroll. We can just have fun. Just scroll through some of these results. I don't know if you guys play fantasy football. If you do, let me know in the comments below. Do you even watch football? Who's your team? So I think all of them are my team at this point. But if you guys see my finance channel, actually, I got a premium NFT Russell Wilson. NFL partnered with the Flow blockchain, and they've got like NFL NFTs. So I have like a legendary Russell Wilson #1 mint worth like at the moment like $20,000. I'm not selling it for less than like 200K. So if anybody cares, I think I'll be rooting for Denver this year just so that Russell Wilson has a big year. All right, so let's check out these t-shirts. Who would Jesus draft? All right, that is currently the top seller. And notice this is kind of staying off the radar. Look at the BSRs. They're not that low, right? Like the best seller right now is 99,000 BSR, which you may be like, oh, well, why even get excited about it? But hey, if you can upload a bunch of shirts and get consistent sales, but no one shirt is making you rich, well, hey, you're still making consistent sales. To me, that's what it's all about. And plus, these are kind of evergreen, even though there's definitely a peak season 4 generating interest. So who would Jesus draft is the #1 bestseller. I've never thought of cross-niching fantasy football with Jesus. I suck at fantasy football. See, this is where my mind kind of goes. Selling like a pink unicorn fantasy football shirt that says I suck, and you can market it a number of different ways. Like, I know fantasy football punishment, those 3 keywords, fantasy football punishment, generate a lot of traffic around this time of year, where basically if you finish in last place, you must be punished, right? And these pink unicorn shirts, and you can do like a pink, toilet. Oh, that's a funny one here. Check this one out. It's got the like football bra and bikini. That's hilarious. This guy sucks at fantasy football, so I'm kind of jumping the gun. Let's check out what else they got here. I'm just here for the snacks, so maybe that'd be like Marielle if she wanted to be there while me and my buddies draft. She might just be there for the snacks because she doesn't really play. The champ is here. All right, perfect. Marketing a shirt to the loser, marketing a shirt to the champion. Fantasy Football Champion 2021. So I made a series. I don't know if I mentioned this specifically, but the first T-shirt of mine that was an original design that I created. This was back in like 2017. I made it for myself, honestly. And it was like a fantasy football champion shirt. And I thought it was hilarious. Like I put all this like trash talk in the shirt, and I tried to be strategic about how I laid it out so it wasn't ugly. But it would say stuff like, I'm the best, you suck, in a big trophy with the year. And I made it for different years. But it was the first shirt of mine that I ever caught being blatantly stolen and ripped off and sold on other websites. So fun fact there. And I did buy myself one of those shirts and wear it to my fantasy draft. And I figured if I'll wear it, somebody else would probably wear it. I almost always win at fantasy football. Another hilarious shirt. The commissioner. So every fantasy football league has a league commissioner that kind of brings everybody together, settles the rules, picks a date to do the draft. So the commissioner shirts are big ones. They probably just buy them for themselves too. Fantasy football champion. I suck at fantasy football. One thing I would say right here, you guys see this design that I'm trying to highlight. Do not use the NFL shield, okay? I have no clue how this shirt is still live on Amazon, but that person, like, how some people are like, oh, I lost my merch account. It's from stuff like this. You know what I mean? They'll be like, oh, I didn't even infringe or something. No. If you use the NFL logo, the shield, and you just change the N to an F, so it's FFL for Fantasy Football League, you're asking for it. So do not do that. World's okayest fantasy player. There you go. So I always say world's okayest doctor, world's okayest teacher, world's okayest lawyer. Great, easy, scalable, text-only designs. How about world's okayest fantasy football player? I suck at fantasy football with the bikini. I think that is absolutely hilarious. Just here for the snacks. Fantasy football GOAT for greatest of all time. Respect the commish. Show me your TDs. That's a classic. I would make sure that's not trademarked though, because that's one of those that's been like trendy for a long time. Better than my husband at fantasy football. How about that? Marketing it to the ladies. All right. Nothing wrong with ladies that play fantasy football. Show me your TDs. Hall of Shame. This is great. You guys see this one right here? It's got the toilet. It's got the unicorn. It's got an incredible design with great color scheme. It says Hall of Shame fantasy football loser. All right. I actually really like that one for last place. This guy sucks at fantasy football. The champ is here. This girl is a fantasy football champion. Again, hey, the demand might not be like as high just on a relative basis. Not that women don't win their leagues, but I think there's less interest, generally speaking, relative like men to women in fantasy football, which is perfectly okay. But women, yeah, you should give it a shot too. I tried to convince Marielle to try it out this year, but so far no luck. 2-time fantasy football champion. So there's another idea. Don't just market to the 1-time champ, market to the 2-time champ, market to the 3-time champ. Like, there is so much opportunity here. And now I'm like itching to go make some more designs, honestly, because I love this idea. Hopefully my head wasn't blocking it, but the multi-time champion, I love that idea. You know, better than my husband at fantasy football. I think that's brilliant as well. There's lots of potential, guys. In terms of like how you execute some of these designs, I just want to throw out some really quick ideas. So you guys know I love All Sunsets. They make the circle graphics, guys. You don't need to like, and it's not always a circle, but the reason I'm saying circle graphics sell really well. My buddy Juna at Detour Shirts, if you follow him on Instagram, he just did a post today, I think, or maybe it was the other day, where he just did like a multi-part post showing some of the best design styles for print on demand, primarily t-shirts, and like circle design styles sell extremely well. If you do any research, you probably noticed that. So I went ahead, I grabbed like this graphic right here, okay, this running back, and you can see a really nice graphic, pulled it into Photoshop. I've got my curved text. I have a template just that I just leave here, right? So I just double click the template. The text is already curved. Drag and drop a circle graphic in here. And by the way, they have a lot more graphics for fantasy football. I just like this one. I like the way it looks. And I think it's a new one because I haven't used it in the past. And then I just add some text to it, right? And then I'll download this design. And then you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch up the text and make a couple more different designs where all I'm doing is switching up the text, because different people want different things when it comes to any niche, including fantasy football. And as we just saw with our niche research, there's a lot of different ways to spin it. So feel free to do something like this, but I think this looks really good. You could even, do something with the text, like color it to match the colors in that, graphic if you wanted to, but that is completely up to you, whatever you think looks best. I think that looks pretty darn good though, and that literally took me like 30 seconds. Just drag, drop, and change the text. I already had Life is Better with up there, so all I had to do was add a second text layer and just put fantasy football. Beyond that, you can also check out like Creative Fabrica. I mean, they just have such a massive library of design assets, pre-made designs. In this case, husband, dad, fantasy football legend. You could even just kind of manipulate those text layers and, use AutomatePOD at AutomatePOD.com, Chrome extension, and you could scale out a bunch of designs. I love the color scheme though. I mean, when you see something you like, guys, save it, right? Reference it later so that next time you sit down to do designs, you can just go to your design idea file, whatever it is. I look at my side monitor because that's where I like to stash a lot of stuff on my, Google Keep. But yeah, this is a great design, and you can just, if you have a Creative Fabrica membership, you can just download it. If you're not a member, you can join for $1 right now. I will drop a link in the description. If you use that link, you can join for $1 for your first month, and then you get a discounted rate after that. They have design bundles. Okay, I'll also drop links to these bundles in case you just want to check out the bundles, because I'm pretty sure they're only a couple bucks. So if you don't want to have a subscription, you can just grab that. But these pre-made bundles are like, you can just use them as is. I typically like to make some alterations, even if it's just adding color. Like you can see they're all in a black foreground. So sometimes I'll just go in and just do a, Photoshop, like really quickly. Let me just show you guys this. So if I just flatten this design, let's just pretend that it was a black foreground. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Actually, I want to keep the black. Okay. You can just flatten this design. So pretend that this was a pre-made design that maybe I grabbed from Creative Fabrica. I can just go right click the layer behind me here, go to blending options. You can do this in Photoshop. You can do it in Photopea. Go to color overlay and turn it to white. I guess not the best example, obviously, because I guess we just lost the detail in the football player himself. But what we just did was we switched it from, in theory, if it was a black foreground, I like to sell on the darker colored t-shirts. We know that they tend to sell better than the lighter colored t-shirts. So that's just one example of how I might alter these designs so that it's a little bit different. And even another fantasy football design bundle. So lots of things to like on Creative Fabrica, guys. All Sunsets, same thing. Keep it simple. Do text only if you're not a good designer and you don't feel like spending a couple bucks on pre-made designs. And that's it. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you liked it. Please, if you need anything, I'll put links in the description. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you tomorrow.